Hi everyone, and welcome to video number 30 on Henry VIII and his ministers. Ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end. This is the last video on King Henry. The previous 29, what I tried to do is work my way through the syllabus, giving you all the detailed knowledge that you will need. For what? For the exam, of course. So this video, hopefully, once you've got the knowledge from the other videos, this video will look at how the actual exam asks you to use that knowledge. So it will try to prepare you for your Henry exam. Now, the GCSE History Paper 2. It's an unusual exam, ladies and gentlemen, because you need to revise two topics for the same exam. Section A is a period study. You may study the Cold War or the American West or something like that. Section B is the depth study, and that's where your school will have chosen to do Henry VIII and his ministers. So it's a Section B. Now, obviously, getting ready for an exam involves revision, ladies and gentlemen. Now, many years ago, when I used to be a history teacher, I used to try and get my pupils to revise. I used to say to them, revise early. I used to get my wristwatch out like this and say to them, I think you should start your revision, ladies and gentlemen, at February. Yes, that's early. And not just your history, all your GCSEs. Try and start your revision early, ladies and gentlemen, February. As Shakespeare said in his famous play Julius Caesar, beware the Ides of March. Well, the Ides of March is the 15th of March. That's the latest that you should be starting your revision. Any later than that and you're rushing things. Be prepared, ladies and gentlemen, because revision is like this. Look at this. There we have a glass with a nice bit of milk. Very nice, very tasty. Now, I could drink that glass of milk fairly easily, but I wouldn't want to drink a whole bucket of milk. And that's what revision is like, ladies and gentlemen. If there are 29 videos on the previous course, Henry VIII and his ministers, imagine that's all the knowledge that you need for your exam. Well, just as the way you can't drink this all in one, you can't get the knowledge in your head all in one. But if you were to sort of take a glass out every now and again and drink that, well, then you could drink the whole bucket if it was over a longer period of time. And that is revision. Do your revision, plan it in a way that you can do a little bit of revision often, little and often. And the best way to do that is to start early. So, hopefully you'll take that advice, and when your exams are beginning to come into view, start your revision early. This exam I'm talking about is 1 hour 45 minutes. Remember, there's two sections, Section A and Section B. So we're roughly talking about 50 minutes for each section. In our section, Section B on Henry and his ministers, there are 3 questions. Question A. Describe 2 features of an event. 4 marks. Now I would say, ladies and gentlemen, using your watch, divide it up sensibly and carefully. If there's just 4 marks, you don't really need to be doing more than 5, 6 or 7 minutes on your question A. Question B. Explain why something happened. 12 marks. Well, on your plan, 12 marks, about 18 to 20 minutes. I would suggest. And the final question, question C, you get two choices here, option 1 or 2. You choose which one you know best. And they will give you a statement. And then after the statement, they'll say, how far do you agree? How far do you agree? 16 marks. 25 to 30 minutes. So plan your timings carefully for the exam. Now, let's begin to look at the 3 questions. Question A, describe 2 features. It could be of anything. Well, I'm going to just make one up. Describe 2 features of Thomas More's opposition to Henry VIII. Now, if you went back and looked at video 23, you would see the answers there. Describe 2 features of Thomas More's opposition to Henry VIII. Do not waste time. 4 marks. 4 sentences. That's all you need. Let's start off. Sentence 1, a statement. Thomas More had a very strong Catholic belief. Sentence 2, he had strongly criticised Martin Luther's beliefs and actions in Germany when he was setting up the Protestant ideas. So you've given a statement, More had strong Catholic beliefs, and then you've put a bit of extra supporting information or detail in. He was so strong in his Catholic beliefs, he attacked Martin Luther. You've backed it up. 2 marks. Sentence 3. More refused to take the oath of succession. Full stop. A statement. Back it up with some detail. He refused to explain why he'd made this decision, but even so, he was put in the Tower of London, tried and executed. So you put a statement, supporting detail, statement, supporting detail. That is a good plan for getting you 4 out of 4 on that first question. Second question is causation. What caused things? It's a why question. Why? Reasons why. Explain why an event happened. Now they will always give you 2 clues, 2 bullet points. I would strongly suggest you use those clues. And it also asks you to use your own information. Well, let's have a look at one. Explain why Henry failed to get his marriage to Catherine of Aragon annulled. There's your question. Gives you 2 clues. Clue 1, Emperor Charles V controlled Rome and Pope Clement. Clue 2, Catherine's behaviour won sympathy. And also use your own information. That's what it will tell you. Well, if you look back at video 11, that would give you the knowledge. Explain why Henry failed to get his marriage to Catherine of Aragon annulled. Well, do a short plan. List the factors, list the reasons. Try and include at least 3. Remember, they'll have given you 2 of them in the clues. Explain why each reason led to the event. In this case, no annulment. Well, let's take the first clue, Charles V. Emperor Charles V controlled Rome, he controlled Pope Clement. Catherine of Aragon was the aunt of Emperor Charles. So Charles would not want the marriage annulled because it would upset Catherine. So this meant that. This led to. They are very useful phrases for you to use. This meant that Pope Clement would not agree with Wolsey and Henry. Or this led to Pope Clement refusing to go along with the annulment. Try and use those phrases. If you're explaining why, because, this led to, this meant that, very useful phrases for you. But they gave you another clue, Catherine's behaviour. What could you say there? Catherine of Aragon told the Pope's representative, Campeggio, that their marriage was legal. Her behaviour impressed everyone. She acted in a very responsible and dignified way. So, this meant that there was a lot of sympathy for Catherine's position, and therefore the Pope would not go against her. Can you see how you are building your argument? 12 marks. To try and get 12, you've got to put your own clues in, your own knowledge. Use their clues, but put your knowledge in as well. Well, what else could we say? Why wouldn't the Pope give the annulment? If you'd, of course, had looked back at video 11, you'd have thought of another reason. Pope Clement did not want to suggest that the previous Pope, Pope Julius, had been wrong to allow the marriage in the first place. This meant that he was against the annulment. Or you could have used Catherine of Aragon had very influential supporters, people like John Fisher and Thomas More. This led to the Pope not wanting to do the annulment because he could see people like More and Fisher were against it. That is how you go about your question 2. Try and remember those phrases. They will help you gain very high marks. The final question then. Question C is a judgment. Your judgment. Your opinion. They'll always give you a statement. Well, let's have a look. Here's one. The main reason for the execution of Anne Boleyn was the lack of a boy. Full stop. It's a statement. How far do you agree? Again, very kind of them in the exam. They give you 2 clues, 2 bullet points. I strongly suggest you use them. Well, here they are. Anne gave birth to Elizabeth. Second one, Henry was attracted to Jane Seymour. You must use your own information as well. Again, do a plan. You are going to write at least 3 parts to this answer because you're going to include both of the clues and at least one other idea from your own knowledge. 16 marks. Plan it out. Well, think of the question again. How far do you agree? So somewhere in your conclusion, your judgment, you say, I'm going to agree a lot, or I'm going to agree to some extent. That's a key phrase. I agree to some extent. Well, if you're agreeing and disagreeing, you have to look at both sides of the argument. The main reason for execution of Anne Boleyn was the lack of a boy. How far do you agree? Well, why was the lack of a boy so important to Henry VIII? Of course, video 16 would give you the answers there. He thought he needed a boy to secure the Tudor dynasty so England could be well ruled by the next monarch, the next king. Remember, Catherine couldn't give Henry a boy, and Anne was the new younger person, and she said, I'll give you a boy, etc. How important was that? It obviously was important. Henry, for a start, had divorced his first wife. That's how desperate he was to get a boy. So you can put an argument together that Anne giving birth to Elizabeth was a key part of her eventually being executed. But there were other reasons. We know Henry VIII married 6 times. We know that he had a very wandering eye for the ladies. Anne isn't giving him a boy. At the same time, Henry becomes attracted to Jane Seymour, a woman at his court. So that must play a part. Henry's deciding maybe it's time to get rid of Anne because I want to marry Jane, and maybe she might give me a boy, which she did, of course, in the end. So Henry's attraction to Jane Seymour does play a part in the downfall of Anne Boleyn. You've used both of the clues. But there are other possible reasons. What about Anne's personality? She was a very flirty character around the court. It led to gossip, court gossip. Well, maybe that played a part in Henry's decision. Yes, she hasn't given him a boy, and at the same time people are gossiping, oh, this Anne's a bit flirty, is she being loyal to the king? Maybe that plays a part. Also, of course, Anne's politics. She was a very strong-willed woman. You know, she was strong in her religion, she was strong in her ideas about foreign policy. Well, maybe that was upsetting people. And maybe they think, right, it's time to get rid of her. So there might be 5 or 6 different reasons why in the end Anne was executed. Your job is to explain all of the reasons. Say which ones support the statements that it was the lack of a boy, and which ones offer other suggestions that it wasn't the lack of a boy, it was other things, the attraction to Jane Seymour, etc. Once you've gone through all of the reasons, then you answer in your conclusion. How far do you agree? So you've built your answer and you conclude by giving your judgment. So, on the whole, I think that the main reason was the lack of a boy, or I agree to some extent. Can you see what you do there? And that is how, hopefully, you get good marks on that final question. So there we have it, Henry VIII and his ministers. You've got the knowledge, and now hopefully you've got some understanding of how to use that knowledge in your exam. Remember, do your revision, little and often. As ever, I hope it's been useful. All the best now. Bye for now.